Hello, good evening, and welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here again with day 17 of progressive rock albums from the 1980s. Yep, we're moving right along past the halfway point now. Not much longer to go. And for those of you who are not familiar with how this works, so we decided when I decided to do this series that I would pick a one-off album that I'd never heard before from progressive rock bands who released albums in the 1980s. That's essentially what we're doing. So I've just defined it a little more by saying that I will only pick one album per band. So you'll get 31 albums, 31 bands, 31 for the month. And there are basically four categories here. So there's bands that I have had a lot of time with. I may have a lot of their albums, but for some reason I didn't do this particular album. I never listened to it before. There are bands who I've had some of their stuff and listened to it quite a bit, but again, haven't listened to this particular album. Then there are bands that I've heard of or have been recommended to that, or I've known of, that I have, but I haven't heard this particular album. And then of course the final one is bands I have never heard of. I know nothing about their albums or anything, so it's all news to me. Okay, so that's pretty much the explanation of what we're doing here. So today, of course, day 17, we have yet another band. I chose a band that's a little bit different here. My goal during this month was to expand my field of progressive rock so that I had more progressive windows, but also I wanted to expand my overall music. So I chose some bands that, while progressive, may have lots of other elements in their music. As people have heard over the last week or so, I've had 2 or 3 bands in there whose music is kind of very different than I would normally listen to. Some of them are maybe not even progressive, but have progressive elements in their music. So we have another band sort of like this today. I was a little bit leery of this band because I thought this could just be a death metal band, but I decided to go ahead with it anyways. They've only had 150 albums of this particular one released, so my second concern was that I would not be able to find this to listen to. But that was also pushed aside when I found it. There are 2 versions of this band, so before I go any further, the band is called Devil Doll, and the album is called The Girl Who Was Death. Sorry, I forgot the very beginning part. I've done that a few times now. Anyways, The Girl Who Was Death. ... death. Pretty interesting cover too. If you can go online and see it, you'll see it's a girl, a stark girl with big hair and whiteness, almost like Frankenstein's wife kind of thing, right? So I wasn't really sure what to expect here, but I was going to keep an open mind. I read a little bit of the comment at the beginning just because I was trying to determine how many tracks there were on this. So there's actually 3 tracks, sort of. Really, there's only 1 track. The last track is just a repeat of a movie theme that we've heard before. Iron Maiden did a cover when they used this as well. And then the middle track is just 25 minutes of silence. I'm not really sure where they were going with that. I guess maybe they decided they were going to record what it sounds like when the room is empty. I'm not sure what they were thinking here. Anyways, there's 3 tracks. The first one, of course, is the title track, which is A Girl... Now I forgot it again. Anyways, it doesn't matter. We all heard it once. That's enough to hear it. You don't need to keep repeating it. So, this first track is about 38 minutes and a bit long. Some very interesting stuff here. First of all, I want to say the musicianship is very good. All the people playing this, and I'm pretty sure there's at least a guitar player, a bass player, a drum player, a keyboardist. There's some violin in this as well. And there may be some percussion stuff as well in there. There may be one or two other instruments that I'm missing here. However, they're all very good. It's all well put together. It's a very, you can tell it has been meticulously put together and melodically put together. I'm guessing, without having read the album cover or the sleeve or knowing anything about this, that they're trying to tell a story. And I'm guessing it's a kind of horror story. That's the impression I'm getting from this whole thing. I think the work is very good, man. If you like this kind of stuff, you might even find this to be a bit on the brilliant side. You might. I actually enjoyed it. I liked it quite a bit. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about it. So you get a kind of feel for what it was I was listening to. So it starts out with some kind of very eerie and kind of very creepy. I'm just going to refer to my notes just so I don't forget this. Yeah, it's a very eerie and kind of foreboding opening. Like very quiet but foreboding. You can feel the kind of, they're trying to create a kind of fear factor here, I guess, if you want to go with that. Then the instruments slowly build up and are pretty heavy. Like this is the guitar and drums and that become pretty heavy here. And then there's kind of a screeching kind of keyboard part. And maybe screeching isn't really the right term. But it's very heavy and noisy and high-pitched keyboardish noises that are a little bit on the soloish side, but I don't know if you would call that a solo. Okay, then you get the kind of the voice that comes. So throughout this entire 38-minute song, there is a kind of narration that's going on that's in a kind of scary kind of voice, which lots of inflections in it. There's a part where it sounds, to give you a kind of comparison, it has a Gollum-like sound to it. When I say Gollum, I mean Gollum Schmeagol, if you want, from Lord of the Rings. So you kind of understand where this voice is. But it doesn't always stay in that range. Sometimes it gets quite high. Sometimes it becomes quite dark. But yeah, very interesting voice. And it you can see that they're attempting to try and make your skin crawl a bit here. So the story, I'm not really following it, but it sounds like somebody is stalking a woman. That's the part that I'm thinking what is happening here. I could be off on this, but it's hard to really get a good picture on what's happening the first time you listen to anything. I usually have to listen to it several times to get a much clearer picture. Anyways, it's quite interesting. And then there's when it goes through this vocal part, it then often, and it does this maybe half a dozen times, will go into a real heavy, almost kind of death metal kind of sound to their music. There's actually one part where they do a kind of death metal like vocals too. I think they only do it once on that song. I don't recall them doing it more than once. So I'm thinking, okay, so they have a quiet followed by a voice followed by heavy guitar and death vocals. I'd see if this becomes a pattern. Well, the death vocals don't come back, but the talking does. And normally what happens is they go into this real heavy part, which is kind of followed by some keyboard solos. And those solos are often kind of eerie, or they can just be straight keyboard solos. But the keyboardist is very good. Like I really think he is the main guy on this album. I think I don't know anything about the musicians or the musicianship, or not musicianship, but what they're all playing and who's playing what. But I can tell you that this guy is, whoever he is, he's very good and on the ball constantly here. There's also a piano part. So when they slow down after the heavy part, they do this kind of piano part, which is very slow and melodic, followed by that creepy voice again. And it comes in, and maybe a dozen times or half dozen times that this voice comes in, and it's kind of telling the story. And it goes from Schmiegel-like to high and then to low, and there's even actually there may be a second voice, and it might be a female voice. It could be that, but it's hard to tell at points. The production of the album is quite good. Like, everything's very clear, and you can tell they've meticulously put each piece in place. I don't get any kind of choppy feeling to the album at all. It's very kind of smooth. The story kind of flows along fairly good. Before you know it, the 38 minutes are gone, and I've been hanging on this thing the whole time. So if you can hold my attention for 38 minutes, I even had a hard time with Thick as a Brick holding my attention for that long. So this was actually quite good. I really thought it was really well done. What else can I say about this particular track? Yeah, some, like, the instrumentation, the guitar, the bass, the drums, all really good. There's some, on occasion, some kind of percussion instruments. Not really 100% sure what it is, but sounds really good. And the track, like I said, is about 38 minutes long, and it's constantly ebbing and flowing, but it's not choppy. There's no choppiness here. This is a smooth. There are a couple points where the voice is going, and all of a sudden it slowly starts to get heavy, and then it drops off, and then the voice comes back in. But I don't think that the sudden stop and the voice coming in is how you want to say, not flowing. I don't think there's a lack of flowing here. I think it actually sounds like a natural progression. Anyways, really, really interesting album. Basically, to me, there's just one track on this album, and then the second track is just called Silence, and that's what it is. It's 25 minutes of nothing. It's just blank space. I'm not really sure what the point was to that. Maybe there is a point to it, and I'm just not getting it. If anybody has an experience with this album or knows anything more about it, I'd be open to listen to what your opinion might be about why they do that. The third track is just a return to the song, to the movie The Prisoner, or the TV series The Prisoner, that I am not a number, I am a free man type of thing. That even you would know if you listen to Iron Maiden's The Prisoner. Iron Maiden does a song called The Prisoner, and they use that part at the beginning. It's the exact same part. It's verbatim, exactly the same. Maybe the little bit of the laughing at the end is kind of different, as the laughing at the end of that is a little bit different, but that's basically what it is, and then it ends. Pretty a pretty good album. They could have dropped the last two tracks, probably would have been a better thing. It would have still been 40 minutes, almost 40 minutes long without those two tracks. So, to be honest, I'll tell you, I did not listen to the Silence for 25 minutes. 25 minutes of listening to my own self thinking, probably not a great idea. Anyways, I liked it, and I hope you will like it too. Give it a try and tell me what you think about it. I think there was a lot of progression in this particular album. I wasn't sure how that was going to pan out. I thought maybe this isn't really progressive, but there was like a lot of progression here. So very interesting stuff, very interesting. So anyways, please like if you liked the video, and subscribe. It's much appreciated. We'd love to hear your comments about this particular track. I really would like to hear some comments about this track, as far as if people have had any experience with it. It's interesting. It was good. Anyways, you have yourself a good evening, and this video will come out tomorrow morning, day 17, December 17th, for progressive rock albums from the 1980s. Have a good night.